Things are heating up as the Stanley Cup Final is quickly approaching. In this video, we're going to break down this series, the stats, the storylines, and all that stuff and much more on this episode of Hat Trick HQ. But before we get into it, we got to say that 79% of you guys watching these videos aren't subscribed to the channel. So if you want to keep up to date on everything that's happening around the hockey world and what's going to go down this offseason, make sure down below and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything. But with that said, let's get right into it. And as you can see, the Stanley Cup Final is here. And yes, we are finally coming to the end of the 2023-2024 season with the Edmonton Oilers facing the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup Final. And yes, it's the moment everybody's been waiting for, the end of the NHL season. And what better than to have, an Alberta team, the Edmonton Oilers, representing Canada and trying to bring it home for our nation. And them on the other side, you have Florida, who was there last year and couldn't get the job done. And they're back again with vengeance, looking to, make McDavid's Stanley Cup appearance nullified, trying to win the cup for themselves and trying to shut McDavid out of his first Stanley Cup. And this is going to be a banger of a series. And we're just going to jump into some stats here. The special teams is obviously going to play a big part in this series, with the Edmonton Oilers holding the rank 1 power play in this playoffs thus far at 37.3%, and the number 1 penalty kill with 93.9%. Let's just call it 94 at that. And, there is some other stats there, but these are the big ones to look at. Obviously, Edmonton's power play has just been phenomenal for them this postseason, and it's looking like nobody can stop this. And then, on the other side, their penalty kill has been just as good or even better at 94%. So their special teams right now is on lock, and they are really firing on all cylinders, either when they're a man down or they're a man up. And that's just great to see on Edmonton's side. Will Florida be able to handle this? That's a question we're going to talk about later in this video. But we're just going to take a look at some more stats here. As we see, the save percentage right now is leaning in the side of the Florida Panthers' favor with a 9.24, with Edmonton having an 8.96, which isn't really representative of how Stuart Skinner played in the conference final. And there is some other stats. There's some, the goals for percentage at 50% for Edmonton, 56% for Florida. Pause the video if you want to see all these stats, but the big thing to look at here is the save percentage. And if we just take a look about how these goalies match up, these are the stats from the conference finals, how each goalie played, and they pretty much mirror each other, with Stuart Skinner putting up a 9.23 save percentage, 1.91 GAA, goals against average, with 12 goals against. And if you look at Sergei Bobrovsky, he had a 9.21 save percentage, 1.89 goals against average, with 12 goals against. So pretty similar stats there. It's looking like the goaltending matchup is really going to be similar here in this Stanley Cup Final, which is great to see. I think it's just amazing to see Stuart Skinner just have the campaign that he's having right now after having that rough beginning to the season to now be one of the top goalies and really lock it in that conference final for the Edmonton Oilers. And on the other side, Bobrovsky has always been a good goaltender, and last year in the finals, he did kind of, have a little bit of a fall off, but he's back looking to get that Stanley Cup. And I think that, these goaltenders are really going to be the deciding factor. If they can stay hot as they are right now, it's going to be a tight-knit series, and I think it's going to be a fun one to watch. But we're going to get into the Oilers side of things first here. And if we just take a look here at Edmonton's side of this playoffs, and as we take a look here, then one of the main storylines here they're saying is the power play. Like we just talked about, will the power play be able to handle Florida's penalty kill, because they have been great on that side of the puck as well with their special teams. But Edmonton has been so dominant, and nobody has really been shown to stop these guys when it comes to special teams. And a big a storyline going into this series for Edmonton is, are they going to be able to keep that success going further here in the playoffs? And in my opinion, I think they are. I don't think anybody is stopping them right now. They're just clicking on a different level when it comes to the power play and converting a lot of those chances, as we've seen. I believe it was like 36, 37% at the beginning of the video when we showed those stats. So that's just showing how great it is. I mean, that's a really high power play percentage for the playoffs. And I mean, when you got guys like McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman operating this unit with Bouchard back there on the blue line, who has been phenomenal for this team, it really just shows that when they get that chance, when they get that opportunity to be a man up, they are converting almost every time, like 37% of the time, which is an unreal stat. And I think it is going to carry over here in the finals, because we've seen Florida throughout this Stanley Cup playoffs be a little bit of a physical team and have taken some costly penalties at times, and you can't do that against a team like the Edmonton Oilers, a team who is just buzzing offensively right now, and especially on the power play. So if we see Florida start to take those, stupid penalties, I think that Edmonton's really going to take advantage of that, and that could be a deciding factor in the series, because if Florida can limit those penalties and just be very disciplined and try to not give them that opportunity to get on that power play, it could be a completely different series. But if it's going like it is right now, I think Edmonton's power play is just so good, and even with a goaltender back there like Bobrovsky, there's no way that they are going to be able to shut this power play down. And a lot of people talk about the penalty kill, how good it's been for Florida, but I mean, the power play has just been exceptional for Edmonton, and there's no penalty killing unit in the entire league that I think can shut this down at this point. And I know that might be a bold take, but I think it's true, and I think a lot of you guys are thinking the same thing here. But as we go further in here and just look at another storyline for the Edmonton Oilers here, and they're talking about, will McDavid finally get his Stanley Cup? We've seen, the likes of Crosby, the greats, all get their Stanley Cup. And, there's going to be a lot of pressure on McDavid to succeed and finally get that ring, finally get that cup for the city of Edmonton. And well, obviously Edmonton has a lot of cups, but, I mean, finally get that cup while he's there in their uniform. I think it's going to be tight, but I think that this could happen. I think McDavid is going to take his game to another level, which is crazy to think about how good he's playing right now. But he's finally in that final. The nerves might be there, but I think McDavid's just that good of a player that kind of stuff doesn't really affect McDavid. And, as they see in this article here, McDavid, wowed with his Game 6 opening goal. He's created so many great highlights over this Stanley Cup playoff, and I think we're going to see this continue on into this series. And, I mean, he's averaging about 23 minutes on ice every night, so he's out there a lot of the time, and there's a good reason for it, because he is the best player in the entire world right now, in my opinion, and I think this is going to keep going, and he's going to keep rolling here in the Stanley Cup final. But there is another thing here, and they're talking about Stuart Skinner, kind of how, what I was saying earlier. I mean, those numbers that represented him earlier with an .896 save percentage isn't really showing what he has done in the conference final when, everything is on the line. You're right there. You just need to get over that line to get to the Stanley Cup final. And he really shut down Dallas, a team whose offense was really great, honestly, throughout this entire Stanley Cup playoffs. Yes, there was a couple of games there, but he did average a 9-2-1 with a 191 goals against average. I mean, you can't shut that. You can't take that away from Stuart Skinner. I mean, like I said earlier, like, this guy at the beginning of the season, was looking shaky. He wasn't really confident in himself. Kind of a similar situation we've seen with Ilya Samsonov. And everybody was saying, Edmonton's trading for a goalie. Edmonton's going to do this. Edmonton's going to do that. but they didn't. They decided to stick with Stuart Skinner in the cage, and it really paid off because whatever happened to him, whatever clicked in his mind for him to start playing the way he's been playing right now, I think, it's great, and he's just been a whole different breed of goaltender, and I think this guy is going to be a wall for the Edmonton Oilers and is really going to shut down a lot of Florida's great chances. We've seen that in the Dallas series, so I'm just assuming that this is going to carry over. It just makes sense. Yes, the nerves of being in the Stanley Cup Final, every goal is on your shoulders as a goaltender. Yes, that may affect him a little bit, but I don't think so. I think this guy is just an exceptional goaltender at this point in time, and I think it's just going to carry forward. And another thing that they did mention in that article was, Florida is the team where, they like clogging up in front of the net. They like trying to get under the goaltender's skin, like we've seen in the Ranger series. I mean, Shesterkin was having to push players with his blocker just to get him out of the way so he could see. So yes, they are going to clog the lane a lot, but I think Stuart Skinner can handle this, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think it's, obviously it's going to be tough for Edmonton. It's not an easy series by any means, but I do think that Stuart Skinner will be on his A game and will be able to handle this kind of log jam down the middle from the Florida Panthers. But we're going to take a look at the Panthers side of things here now, and as we take a look here, we see here the first storyline that they do say here is that Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk are going to be hated in Alberta yet again. Obviously, both guys playing in Calgary for so long, the Battle of Alberta, they are still in the minds of the Edmonton Oilers fans. And I mean, Matthew Tkachuk has been so good for this Florida Panthers team. Did I say Matthews earlier? Matthew Tkachuk, that's what I mean. Too many Toronto videos lately. But Matthew Tkachuk, I mean, he's an exceptional player. He knows how to get under opponent's skin, and he can do it offensively for this team. And I think right now he's leading Florida in points, I believe 19. Correct me if I'm wrong down below in the comment section. He's just been a force for this team during the Stanley Cup playoffs. He really wants this trophy. I know a lot of other people want this too, but Sam Bennett, I mean, he's been good too. I mean, 53 hits right now for the Florida Panthers. These guys are really going to be another kind of one of the factors for this Florida Panthers team. And if they can continue this up, if Matthew Tkachuk can continue the offense of streak he's on right now and keep putting those points up, I think, this is going to play a factor in Florida's favor here. Obviously, Sam Bennett, we have seen him be a physical guy this year. Like I said, 53 hits in this playoffs. And, at times, he does take some bad penalties. He finds himself in the box and stuff like that. So if he can try to limit that and be more disciplined here so that Edmonton can't get on the power play while still getting under the opponent's skin by still, bruising people up every single night. I think this it will be a great thing for the Florida Panthers. And these are two guys you should look at because, I mean, they know what it's like to play in Edmonton. They played the Battle of Alberta for years and years. So being in that home stadium isn't really going to, or being in Edmonton Stadium isn't really going to affect those guys much. And I think they're going to share their experience there with the other players on that team and stuff like that, which, it does play a factor into Florida in a good way because, like I said, these guys played Edmonton so many times, so they know what to do and how to win games against them. But the second thing here that they're saying is, can Sergei Bobrovsky deliver in the Stanley Cup Finals this time? They say last time, obviously, he in 3 rounds, he started the Stanley Cup Final as the team's top Conn Smythe candidate, and in the conference final, they swept Carolina, and Bobrovsky allowed just 6 goals in 4 games and looked capable of stealing a series if it came down to it. But then in the Stanley Cup final. He allowed 4 goals in game 1 after just allowing 6 in the entire series against Carolina. And then they say another, and then he said, then another 4 in the 1.5 periods in game 2. He kind of, when push came to shove and he needed to be that guy, he needed to be that number 1 goaltender for this Florida Panthers team and lock it in and really, be a wall back there that we know Sergei Bobrovsky can be. It didn't happen. Whether it was the pressure of the finals, whether it was just how good Vegas was, I mean, he couldn't, handle that pressure. And could we see that with Edmonton? Yes, because I think Edmonton's offense is very eerily similar to what Vegas's was last year. And if they can go out and get, 3-4 goals in game 1, that's going to be eating at him in his mind, saying, hey, I did this last year, I cannot do this again. It's going to add a lot more pressure on the plate of Sergei Bobrovsky. But I mean, I think Bobrovsky is one of the best goaltenders in the NHL. He's been a number 1 goalie for quite some time, and I think he's really good at what he does. It's just when crunch time comes and once they get to the Stanley Cup final, it just seems like something happens with him and he can't get the job done. But I think it's going to be different this year. I don't think this is going to affect him at all. Maybe, like I said, the only way I can see this is that maybe Edmonton just starts out hot, gets red hot off the start, pots a couple goals in the first period. I think that's going to hurt his and shake his confidence a lot. But I do think that Bobrovsky, if this doesn't happen, he's looking for blood. He's back for vengeance. He wants to show everybody that he can do it in the Stanley Cup final. And that's the case why I think Bobrovsky is going to be good. It is going to be hard to stop top players in the NHL like Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman. He's been having a phenomenal playoffs, putting goals in, constantly for this Edmonton Oilers team. So he's really going to need to be on his A game if Florida wants to win this Stanley Cup, in my opinion. And there is one more storyline here, and that is Gustav Forsling, a guy who hasn't really got recognized as much as I would like him to be. I think he's a phenomenal defensive player here, and they say here he's the X factor and a Conn Smythe candidate for this Florida Panthers team. And they say here, if you don't know who he is, then you should know now after this run that they've been on. I mean, defensively, this guy has been amazing for this team. And if we just take a look here, I mean, we see here, when Forsling is on the ice 5-on-5, the Panthers have controlled nearly 60% of all shot attempts, over 60% of all shots, and have outscored their opponents 15-10. So when Forsling's on the ice, they're blocking shots, pucks aren't getting through the net, the lanes are getting clogged, and on the other side, they're scoring goals. He's been, logging a lot of minutes per night, paired with Aaron Ekblad up on that top pairing, and he has played a lot on the penalty kill. He's played a big factor into why Florida's penalty kill has been so good. We've seen him. He's like in this playoffs, for instance, he's been out on the ice against guys like Kucherov, Zibanejad, and guys like that, top players, and has proven to shut them down in this Stanley Cup playoffs. Can he do that for McDavid? That is the big question that everybody is asking right now. Can Forsling and the Florida Panthers defense shut down the top guys of Edmonton, like Draisaitl, like McDavid, like Hyman, like Nuge? And to answer that, we really don't know. I think I'm going to put a percentage on it. I think there's a 60% chance that he can do this because McDavid is just so good. He's the best player in the world, and there's not very many defenders in the league today that can shut down a guy the caliber of Connor McDavid. And I think Forsling, yes, he has had a great series. And if Florida wins this and wins the Stanley Cup this year, I think Forsling will play a big factor into that and a big factor into maybe him being considered for the Conn Smythe as such a great defender. And I think that would be really cool to see. I think this guy's a phenomenal player. He doesn't get credit where credit's due. We're giving it to him here on the channel because this guy is an exceptional defender. But if McDavid can do McDavid things and make the magic work when it comes to, his playmaking, when it comes to his hands and stuff like that, it's going to be tough because I think Forsling does have the capability to shut down McDavid time to time, but not every time because McDavid is just so good. But if their defense can limit the offense of the Edmonton Oilers, I think it's going to be hard for them to get a puck in the net, especially with Bobrovsky in the cage. But I'm going to get into what everybody's here for. But I'm going to get into what everybody's here for. And that is the prediction for the Stanley Cup Finals. I am predicting that the Edmonton Oilers will win the Stanley Cup and bring it home to Canada for the first time in a very, very long time in 6 games. I think Edmonton wins in 6, maybe 7. I'd like to see the finals go to 7 because the do-or-die game for the Cup would just be fantastic to watch. But just by looking at this, I think that they are going to win in 6. And I'm going to give you a reason here. I think that Edmonton's, like I've said multiple times in this video, Edmonton's offense, their special teams are just so good right now and are excelling at every point in the game against every team they faced so far in this playoffs that not even a team the caliber of the Florida Panthers can shut them down. And that is why I think Edmonton is going to win. I don't think it's going to be blowout games. I think they're going to be close. They're going to be 1-goal games, 2-goal games with empty netters. I think that's what's going to happen. And I think, Edmonton wins, the first game hands down, but it's going to be back and forth action. It's going to be fun to watch, and I got Edmonton bringing the cup home and McDavid hoisting the Stanley Cup for the very first time because he deserves it. He's the best player in the world. He's been through the trenches with the Edmonton Oilers, and he deserves his Stanley Cup. Not saying that the Florida Panthers deserve their Stanley Cup because it's going to be devastating for them if they do lose 2 years in a row back to back, but I do think McDavid needs his cup to be considered one. I mean, he is the best player in the world, but needs to be considered to be one of the greats of this entire generation, of this past decades. He'll be up there then with guys like Crosby, Ovi. Ovi had his cup, McDavid has his cup, and yes, there's still room for him to get more cups, but I think it starts now with McDavid hoisting the cup for the very first time. But I want to hear your guys' predictions and everything down below in the comments section. Love to hear from you guys. Love going through and reading your comments on the videos and showing your support. It means a lot to us. We're going to get into everybody's favorite topic here, which is comment of the day. And the comment of the day today goes to Rob, our boy Rob, one of the day one supporters here on this channel. We see you down in the comment section all the time, Rob. Really appreciate your support, and seeing you come back to these videos means a lot to us. He says, Casey, you're awesome, my friend. Keep the great work up. Appreciate you, Rob. Appreciate you sticking around to this channel for a very long time, and love seeing your name down below in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure down below, hit that like button while you're down there. Leave a comment on the video. You might be featured on the next comment of the day, and hit subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss out on anything that's happening around the hockey world. And if you want to check out a video we did yesterday, it'll be popping up on your screen right now. But as always, I've been your host, KC. Keep your stick on the ice. Have fun watching the Stanley Cup Final.